Help me hit 7,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. Thank you. My name is Rowan. Not the toughest guy you'll ever meet. Not the softest either. I'm 37. Married to Marin, 35. We don't have kids. Not because we didn't want them, but because life kept throwing timing problems at us until the conversation faded into the background. For years, it felt like we were teammates simply trying to stay afloat. But lately, I'd started feeling like we were two people living parallel lives that still somehow shared a kitchen. The story begins on a Thursday morning, gray, humid, with the kind of sky that looks like it's holding its breath. I had a 3-day work trip scheduled out of state. Nothing glamorous, just meetings, logistics, and the usual corporate nonsense. I'd packed lightly. 2 shirts, 1 pair of slacks, a book I probably wouldn't read. I set my bag by the front door like I always did. But something felt wrong in the atmosphere that morning, the kind of tension you don't hear so much as feel. Marin had been distant all week. Not angry, not sad, just disconnected. If silence had a shape, hers would have been heavy, sticky, impossible to ignore. I was pouring myself a cup of coffee when I heard her footsteps coming down the hallway. Slow, almost cautious. She walked into the kitchen wearing one of her oversized lavender sweaters, hair pulled into a loose bun, eyes a little puffy like she hadn't slept well. She froze the second she saw me. "You didn't leave?" Her voice wasn't irritated. It was surprised, almost nervous. I turned the mug in my hands, letting the steam touch my face before answering. "The trip is canceled." That made her stop completely, like someone had unplugged her. Her hand, halfway to the cupboard, hung in midair for a second before she slowly lowered it. Her eyes blinked once, twice, processing. "Canceled? Why? Not are you okay? Not what happened. Just why?" It was a strange moment, realizing how much meaning could hide behind one 3-letter word. I shrugged lightly. "A budgeting issue. They're postponing it." Her gaze flicked to the front door, where my duffel bag sat untouched. The kind of glance someone gives something they'd planned around. Or planned with. "Right?" she said softly. "Okay. I just thought you'd already left." There was the slightest tremble in her voice that she tried to swallow. If I hadn't known her for years, I might have missed it. But I did know her, and that tremble meant she had needed me to be gone this morning. I didn't point it out. I just took a slow sip of coffee, watching her as she drifted toward the pantry like her body was moving on autopilot. She grabbed a jar of oats she didn't really want and set it on the counter with a soft thud. Something was clearly off. For the past month, Marin had been oddly protective of her phone, turning it face down, walking out of rooms to answer calls, whispering late-night conversations in the bathroom with the water running. None of it fit her personality. She was usually an open book, maybe too open sometimes. But now I couldn't read a single page. She cleared her throat. "So, you're home today?" "Looks like it," I said. A tight smile flickered across her lips. "Okay, well, I need to step out for a bit. I promised Celia I'd meet her this morning." Celia, her friend who lived 30 minutes away. The one she hadn't mentioned visiting in months. The one she suddenly seemed to see more than anyone else. I nodded, letting the silence sit between us like an unopened letter. She grabbed her keys from the counter, hands slightly shaky. "I'll be back soon." "Take your time," I replied. But as she stepped past me to reach the door, her perfume drifted through the air, fresh, floral, deliberate. Not the kind she usually wore at home. The kind she put on when she expected to see someone who would notice. Her hand touched the doorknob. Then she hesitated. "Rowan?" she said quietly without turning around. "Yeah." Her voice dropped even lower. "You're really staying home today?" The question felt wrong. Too layered. Too careful. I set my mug down. "Yeah, Marin, I am." She swallowed, nodded once, and then walked out. The door clicked behind her like a punctuation mark. And the moment it closed, an uneasy thought settled over me. Slow, cold, impossible to ignore. She hadn't been surprised that I was home. She'd been caught. The rest of the morning felt heavier than usual. The sunlight filtering through the blinds didn't warm the room. It highlighted the silence. I sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around my mug, pretending to scroll through emails, but my mind was racing. Every little thing suddenly made sense. The distant conversations, the late-night excuses, the sudden obsession with her phone. By noon, she returned. Marin's car pulled into the driveway, slow and deliberate, like she was giving herself time to rehearse the next scene. I stayed seated, eyes forward, letting the tension stretch. She came through the door, and for a moment, it felt like the room itself had paused. "Rowan," she started. Her voice wasn't accusatory. There was a flicker of worry, maybe even guilt. I didn't turn. "Welcome back." She froze mid-step, like she expected me to chase her, to question, to beg. None of it came. I didn't move. My chest felt tight, yet clear, like a dam had broken and left calm water behind. I thought you'd leave," she whispered, almost to herself. "I didn't," I said simply. She blinked, uncertainty creeping into her expression. "Why? Why?" That one word carried all the weight of 1,000 unspoken arguments. The kind of word people use when they realize the rules of a game have changed. "Because I choose to," I said quietly. "Because I'm done following your expectations." Her eyes widened slightly, not with shock, but recognition. She knew, finally, that the old script, the one where I silently agreed to her whims, where I adjusted my life around hers, was no longer running. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, lips pressed together. "So what now?" I set my mug down with a gentle thud, letting the sound fill the room. "Now, we live in the same house, but the trip is canceled. That's all." Marin stared at me, trying to process, her brows knitted in confusion. "Are you upset?" I shook my head. "No, not upset, not angry, just clear. I realized something this morning. I've been bending over backwards for months, trying to fix something that wasn't broken for you. And I can't do it anymore." Her shoulders sagged slightly, a small crack in her armor. She'd been so used to me complying, adjusting, disappearing into the background, that my sudden refusal felt like gravity had shifted. "Rowan," she began again, softer this time. I didn't expect." "You didn't expect what?" I interrupted, voice steady. "For me to stop? For me to act like my own life has value? Because it does. And I'm done pretending it doesn't." The words hung between us like a curtain. She shifted, unsure whether to storm out, cry, or speak. I could see the calculation in her eyes, the realization that her control over the situation was no longer absolute. Maybe I overstepped," she admitted, almost inaudible. "Maybe," I said, but there was no triumph in my tone. No gloating, just honesty. And that honesty cut deeper than any argument, any yell, any fight we'd ever had. For the first time in months, we weren't pretending. The tension wasn't masked by sarcasm or routine. It was naked, clear, and unavoidable. Marin walked to the fridge, pulled out a bottle of water, and leaned back against it. She didn't speak for several moments, just sipped, eyes on the counter tiles. I watched her, recognizing someone I'd loved, someone I'd grown distant from, and someone who had made choices I could no longer ignore. "You really aren't leaving?" she asked, almost whispering. "I'm not," I replied. She nodded slowly. "So, the trip is canceled." I gave a small, tight smile. "Yes, the trip is canceled." A pause. Then she finally looked at me, really looked at me without pretense. For a moment, it was almost like the old Marin, the one who used to laugh at my stupid jokes, who used to stay up late just to talk. But this was tempered by caution, by understanding, by the knowledge that the dynamics had changed. "I don't know what to say," she murmured. "Then don't," I said. "Just understand that I'm done chasing approval that isn't given freely. That's all you need to know." She leaned back against the counter, exhaling slowly, as if she'd been holding her breath for years. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, trying to figure out how to regain some control, some normalcy. But the truth was, she couldn't. Not today. Not now. I walked past her to the living room, leaving the mug on the counter. She didn't follow, didn't protest. The air felt different. Quiet, sharp, yet almost peaceful. Marin called from the kitchen, voice softer than I'd heard in a long time. Rowan. Yes. Thank you for not leaving. I paused, letting the words sink in. You're welcome. And in that moment, the kitchen wasn't just a room. It wasn't just a space where tension had hung like a heavy fog. It was a place where clarity had arrived, quiet but undeniable. Where the rules had shifted, not with anger, not with shouting, but with quiet resolve. Where I had finally reclaimed a piece of myself without needing permission. And that, more than anything else, felt like victory.